Hello, and welcome to another production of the Technology Training Team. In this video, you will learn how to establish routines and procedures in the virtual classroom. So let's go ahead and begin. Here you have your presenters for today, Megan Eric, Renee Henderson, Patrick Pierre-Louis, and Sarah Thomas. So when we establish these routines and procedures, one thing that we may want to do at the beginning of each section or each session is to check in and see how our students are doing. So here we have a sample poll that we would share with our students, quote unquote, to see how they're doing today, how they're feeling. So we would use the poll function. You can do so in your preferred tool of choice as you're delivering this instruction and checking to see how your students are doing. And you'll see here that we have Kermit the Frog, we have Kanye West, we have this little girl who wants to take a nap. So we have gifts or gifs, however you want to pronounce it, just as a way to just kind of keep things fun. So expectations for today. If you were to do this live, you would be muted on entry and your camera would have been disabled. These are functions that are available on the platform that we're using. So this would be to help us maintain the flow with high numbers of participants. We would also ask that you participate in the session. So we would pause to ask you about your input using things such as polls, as you saw in the previous slide, as well as a chat feature at various times. So these are features that you can use to interact with your students and make it more engaging. Also, if you have questions at any time, you would be able to use a Q&A feature. And lastly, staying present with us during the session and limiting distractions as much as possible. So we totally understand that these are not our regular circumstances. So things may happen, but we just ask that if you get pulled away, that you come right back to us just so that you can get the most out of this session. The reason that we're doing this today is to establish routines and procedures, and these are critical components of successful virtual learning. So if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see a cell phone and different icons on here that are our agenda for today. So we're going to be covering the following different things, such as expectations, live sessions, digital citizenship, Google Classroom, our schedule, communication, troubleshooting, policies, and resources. And if you're navigating through our presentation resources, you'll be able to go in and click on each one, and that will take you to the section that we'll be describing. As far as expectations go, we set this up in a way where we can model a model of instruction that you may use with your students. So we have set it up in a way that hopefully you'll find engaging as well as informing so that you get ideas of what you can do with your students when they come back to you. So what we just did, we set expectations just like we would if we were face-to-face in a classroom environment. So remember to do the same thing online. And also, as we are in an emergency remote situation, be sure to give grace to your students, your colleagues, all stakeholders, and most of all, yourself. We are all learning and growing together. So just keeping that in mind and, remaining positive, optimistic, and we're going to have a great school year together. So to set some expectations for today, we have a video. So we'll ask you when you do go to our website, go ahead and take a look at this video right here. This teacher has done a great job of identifying some strategies that help during the classroom management process. In addition, you'll be able to click on this graphic here and see some sample Zoom and Meet Google expectations. So click on it, then you'll see that we have a template here that you can just kind of make a copy and adjust it for yourself. Okay. Also, we have linked, if you are a secondary teacher, we have someone outside of our district, Ms. Pamela Bradley, who has meeting norms for Zoom or Google Meet. So this is a sample that you can use to kind of give you inspiration as you are creating your own norms for your students. So go ahead and click through there and get a few ideas. All right. So as that everything will be smooth sailing, just like in a face-to-face classroom, you may encounter some situations with misbehavior. So PBIS apps put together a 4-step plan of what to do if this does occur. So I'll go ahead and click on it here. I won't read it to you. You can go in and take a look yourself whenever you get a chance, and you can see their great steps. But the first step, taking a breath, so just pausing, okay? Pause, come back to it, all right? The second thing, reteaching the expectations, so reminding students of your classroom rules, procedures. Third thing, getting curious. So seeing why a student might be misbehaving. So there might be a root cause there that you want to get to the bottom to. And lastly, documenting. So being sure to document the problem behavior that you see. And you'll see a chart also on this blog post that tells you various things that might be occurring, and it kind of breaks down a definition. So this is a great resource to stick in your back pocket when it comes to addressing things such as misbehavior. All right, now we are coming together to do our synchronous sessions with students, then we will be using video tools. So Dr. Tori Trust put together a great infographic, and here we have summarized some of the major points for you. So a few things that she recommended were to allow voice and choice in terms of response. So you definitely want to be engaging and interactive. Also asking questions to students for understanding, just like how we would do in a traditional situation. Also using digital assessment tools. We have some great ones in the county that we offer a lot of professional learning on. So you can always visit our website if you want a refresher on them, but things such as Nearpod, Flipgrid, Pear Deck, and more. And also, if you have a concern why a student's camera might be off, then ask questions. Don't assume what you think it may be, but ask questions just so that you would know. Now, some things not to do. What you don't want to do, you don't want to tie video and eye contact time to their grade. Okay, there might be various reasons why your students turn their camera off. So we don't want to penalize them if they are in a situation where they either don't want to or don't feel comfortable in doing so. Also, don't remove students if their videos are not on, because in that case, they don't have the same opportunity to access the learning as other students would. Okay, also, we don't want to give them extra credit for turning on their camera or tricking them into turning on their videos like a class dance party or something like that. So just being very intentional in terms of how we communicate with our students and accommodating learner preferences. So this transitions us to our next topic, which is a big one, especially right now during emergency remote learning. We have the topic of digital citizenship. Now, you may have heard this phrase. You may have heard it several times, but what it is, just to calibrate so that we're all on the same page, here's a definition from the International Society for Technology and Education. Um, in the beginning, then digital citizenship was regarded as don't, like internet safety. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. However, it has evolved over time to think of things, behaviors that we want our students to do while remaining safe online, so they can be thoughtful, empathetic digital citizens. So we want to teach them how to make social media work for them, how to make connections work for them, all of those good things. So we have a few resources for you. So these headings here are clickable, and we'll take a quick look. So in terms of digital citizenship, we want to be sure to prepare ourselves. You might want to familiarize yourself with the Common Sense Education website, which will provide you with a lot of resources. So clicking on that now, and you see here that they have free distance learning resources for back to school. They have stuff on digital citizenship, ed tech ratings and reviews for different tools, as well as wide open school. This is a great hub. It has a lot of information for your students, for their parents, and for you. They have even professional learning opportunities where you can learn more. Okay, so Common Sense Education is a fantastic resource. Another one that we have for use, and we have a digital citizenship cohort certification through Common Sense. So we do it as a district, and you'll be able to see cohort 3 will be beginning September 14th and it runs to December 14th. All you have to do is click on the link to join Google Classroom and participate. And you can just go through some self-guided activities. And at the end, if you submit all of your requirements, it's a very easy lift. Then you will be Common Sense certified for, I believe, 2 years. So this is a nationally recognized certification, and it's great for domain 4 of your FFT. So so this is great stuff. And you can also see who else has been in our Common Sense Certified Hall of Fame. All right. And the last thing, the Google Digital Citizenship course that you can take. I'm not going to click on it because it's going to, well, I will click on it, but I'm not going to sign in. But you'll see here, you'll be able to preview it. There's a digital citizenship and safety course, and you can kind of go through and learn about these great different topics here. Okay. All right. Preparing ourselves. Now, the next thing, obviously, is preparing our students for the. So Leanne Lindsay with Edvolve created a wonderful graphic here about camera on, camera off. I am an empowered learner. So here, if you click on this, then she has some things that you can do, or things that your students can do, rather, factors that they can consider why they may turn on or turn off their camera, okay, as well as some things that they can do. Now, on the next one, there is a hyperdoc courtesy of Holly Clark. So a hyperdoc, if you're not familiar with the concept, it is a Google different links and activities. So she has here some fantastic ones linked to this, and they can kind of go through. You can turnkey this as an assignment for your students. So this is great. You can just add it to your drive. So you can just file, make a copy, add it to your drive, and maybe send it to your students in Google Classroom, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. Also, Nearpod. So Nearpod is a tool that we highly recommend. So we do have some workshops on it available on our website. So definitely check my PPS as well as our T3 site. They have some digital citizenship lessons in there for every grade level. So you can go in and find whatever you're looking for, and you can then assign that for your students to learn more about how to be a good digital citizen. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to my colleague, Megan, who is going to tell you a little bit more about live sessions.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for walking us through some of the really important details with students with expectations and digital citizenship. And once you have a plan for those in place, it's also important to think about how you will structure and conduct your live lessons or your synchronous learning with your students. So this time of year, we get really excited about setting up our physical classrooms, but we know that's not a reality for us right now. But we still have an opportunity to set up our work from home classroom. So we have an opportunity for you on this slide, if you're revisiting this at a later time, to click on the Padlet icon right here, and you can share a picture with us of your work from home classroom. Let us know what your setup looks like. Or if you're not ready to share your whole classroom, maybe you have a really great hack for sharing resources or organizing your workspace, and we want to learn from you. So please do take some time to come back to this Padlet and post your ideas. But in the meantime, let's talk about some of the things you need to consider. The first one, of course, is lighting. It's so important that we have good lighting that's in front of us, not behind us or not by the side. We need it in front so that our students can really see us and connect with us. We want them to see our smiles, and we want them to see our facial expressions as we respond to their ideas or respond to the text that we're reading. So a light that a lot of people have been taking to during all of this virtual work has been a ring light. And you can see here, it looks just kind of like the picture we have. It's just a little circle with a bunch of small light bulbs on it, but it gives you that nice glow. It's also important for us to consider what our background looks like when we're presenting. Ideally, it would be distraction free, but we know that that's not always completely possible. So we have two resources here for you. The first one, if you will be using Zoom with your students, is a collection of virtual backgrounds. These are organized by Canva, and you don't even have to be a Canva member to download one of these backgrounds. But you can see there's some that are educational focused and some that are just nice, relaxing environments to have behind you. So this would be one option, again, if you're using Zoom and you would like to have a virtual background. Another option are some backgrounds that have been shared by teachers in other environments to show how they've created a different background. So things like from maps to an actual whiteboard, to all the way down to creating just with a science fair board. So there's all kinds of ideas here on how, even if you have a lot going on behind you, you can still create an environment that's appealing and conducive to learning for your students. Now, unfortunately, because most of our students will be using Chromebooks, they cannot take advantage of virtual backgrounds. But as a teacher, that is something that you can do. Also, of course, we want to limit our background noises so our students can focus on us and the information we're presenting to them. And part of that includes turning off some of those computer notifications. So if you're using, Google Hangouts chat, you want to make sure you're muting that while you're teaching, so the students don't always hear the beeps going off. And of course, just like our students are expected to dress appropriately, not in uniform, but appropriately, we too should do the same thing. We want to honor our students and show them that we're treating this like it's still a real education and it's still a real environment. And we want to show them that we were excited to get up and be with them and look presentable. So just make sure you're making good choices there, just as you would if you were going into the building every day. And then lastly, just a small tip, if you're sharing videos with your students, make sure to unplug your headphones so the audio goes through the computer and the students can hear the video. So, but with that, we have to make sure we're checking our background noise as well. So that's kind of our whole little setup for our physical space of where we'll be when we're teaching our students. Now let's consider, once we get into our virtual space, how will we navigate the tool that we're using? And we do have two tools available, Zoom and Meet. However, we are recommending that teachers choose Zoom this year because starting in late September on the 30th, we will lose access to some of the premium features of Meet. And additionally, Zoom just has some more advanced features available in terms of security and communication. You will see some announcements that Meet is getting some exciting features, but those will not be available on our accounts in most cases. So let's take a look at what you will have available so you can make the choice that's right for you. In both Zoom and Meet, you have tools like chat and audio, so you can choose how you want your students to communicate. If you're working with younger students, we might have to rely more on audio because they may not be ready to type responses, or it may just take too long for them to type a long response. But working with older students, we can choose which one is best. Zoom also has a feature called reactions. These are 10-second little icons that show up on where your video would be. And I have a choice between a clap and a thumbs up. So I might use this to the students to say, okay, at the end of the story, the character felt this way. Do you agree with that outcome? And I can give the students to give a thumbs up if they agreed with something, or they can clap if they are understanding a topic. But again, they last for 10 seconds, so it's just a real quick status check like you would if you were looking around your physical room. In addition to those disappearing reactions, Zoom also offers nonverbal feedback in the participant section. And this allows students to choose things like thumbs up or thumbs down. They can click a check mark to say they agree. They can clap, There's even one to say that they need to step away for a moment. And these will stay next to their name in the participant window. So you can decide which tools you want to use, but then also come to some sort of agreement. In our class, a thumbs up means this, or a green check mark means this. And make sure you're giving your students, one, an understanding of the icons, two, an opportunity to practice them, and make sure they know where they are and they're comfortable with that. So you're not spending most of your time saying, okay, no, it's over here, click here. Give them a chance to explore and play and learn to use the tool appropriately, just as you would if you were introducing some sort of manipulative in your classroom. So, two more features that Zoom offers are breakout rooms and polling. Breakout rooms allow you to take your large group of students and put them into smaller groups in separate virtual rooms that are part of your bigger Zoom meeting. So if we compare this to the physical classroom, it's just like having students get into small groups and spread out around the room. The difference here is that when you're in the physical room, you can kind of glance around and see everybody at once. When you're in a Zoom environment, you can't see every room at the same time. You have to take turns going from room to room. So there will be some additional guidance coming out regarding the use of breakout rooms, but I also want to challenge you to think about when breakout rooms are appropriate, especially at the beginning of the year. Some of our students may not be ready to go into a private room with another student that they may not know very well yet. So while we think that this might be a good place for them to develop relationships, we also need to make sure that our classroom has established enough of a relationship that they can feel comfortable communicating with somebody they don't know well yet. So keep that in mind, and just keep in mind how you'll make sure students are on track and that you'll communicate the expectations and all of those things that Sarah talked about for the big room. How would you do that in the small room? And then finally, polling. Sarah referenced a poll earlier in this session. It's just a really quick way to have students respond to a question. It could be a selected response. They could choose more than one thing. So it could be about understanding or about feelings. It could even be a knowledge check. So that's another built-in feature of Zoom that you can use to engage your students. All right, these are all features built into the tools, but we do have some additional features outside of Zoom or Meet that can help us stay on track. One of my favorites is Classroom Screen. And I'm going to jump over to a sample screen that I built earlier. And a classroom screen allows you to have different elements on there that can stay displayed to help keep your students informed. So you can see here on my screen, I might choose to use this when my students come in, but I may also choose to use it when they are doing some independent work. So perhaps I said to the students, okay, now we're going to do activity 1. You let them see what that is. So they always have the directions displayed, just like I might in my physical classroom have them displayed at the front. And then I can set a timer for how long we're going to spend on our work. And when I set that timer, I can also choose what kind of music plays or what sort of noise effect plays at the end. So this is going to be a really quick lesson. We're going to pretend, there we go, that we have just 2 seconds to do our activity. And as I hit play, you can see the timer is up. And so I have different chimes or different noises. And you may establish some protocols with your students that certain noises have certain meanings. And you can have different timers already planned out on your screen. I love this one, the stoplight. And in a virtual classroom, you can think about when it's red, we're all on mute. When it's yellow, it means I'm calling on one person to talk at a time. And when it's on green, let's all unmute and have a conversation. Or you could come up with your own rules for that. But I think that's a great way to give students a visual cue to go along with what's happening virtually. And then finally, if you're elementary like I was, we always had our equity sticks Well, maybe you didn't bring them home or make them for this year. That's okay because there's a name picker built right in to Classroom Screen. You can see here now it's Mariah's turn, so I can ask her to share what she made in activity 1. Now I can have multiple screens built and I can choose from among the different screens. So I might have different ones for different parts of my lesson or different classes that I'm meeting with. However, if you're using the free version, which I do, you can only have you can't save your screens. So you just would have to make them each day. But they're so easy to make. It doesn't take much time at all, but I would definitely have them made before class, or at least think about them before class. Okay. So maybe you don't need something as big as a screen. You just need to bring students back together. Well, for our elementary teachers, we're big fans of the clap and respond. So you can still do that. You can clap and your students can respond. They're so familiar with that. Maybe clapping's not your thing. Maybe you have a specific noise. Or for our older students, maybe they'll respond more to having music. And as part of building your relationships with your students and getting to know who they are and their interests, you might even have them pick out a few songs and say, okay, when it's time, I'm going to play a clip from this song. Of course, we would use the safe for school version, but it helps them feel like you're acknowledging them as people and that you're embracing the things that are interesting to them. And then finally, later this fall, we'll be introducing a tool called Hapara. Hapara is a classroom management system that allows you to see what the students are working on remotely. So I like to think about it as the equivalent of it's independent work time. Everybody's working at their seat. And as a teacher, I'm walking around the room. I'm noticing what they're working on. If I see a student struggling, I'm going to jump in and start having a conversation with them. Hapara will let you do the same thing remotely, but we'll focus it on the students that we're working with either during a synchronous lesson or ones who we know during asynchronous work time are focused on our content. We don't want to jump in when they're working with another teacher, but you'll learn more about that during the Hapara trainings to look for later in September. And of course, we do need to remind you that if you are choosing a tool that is not part of Zoom or Meet or G Suite or Clever, we want to make sure that it's not asking our students to log in because we really want to protect our students and their personal information. Classroom Screen, it's free. My students aren't accessing it at all. So that's totally fine. But we want to avoid having students create accounts or even creating accounts for students if it's not approved for use. Okay, so that was a lot about our synchronous. What's happening when we're all together on Zoom or on Meet? But what happens when the students aren't with us in that virtual environment? What are they doing? Well, chances are their day is starting in classroom. So it's important that when they go in the classroom, just like you would expect when they walk into your physical classroom, it's neat and orderly and labeled, and they know where to go for things and what to do and all those things that we walk them through at the beginning of the year. We want our virtual classroom to be the same way. So here's some tips to get that classroom set up in a way that can work for you. The first one has to do with topics. This is what really provides the structure for your classroom. So here's some examples on how you might use topics to structure your class. This one organizes it by units. But what I love about this one is not only does she use units to organize the work, she's also implemented a numbering system for each individual assignment to help students keep track. So I know the unit and I know what order I'm working in. Another example is this one where the content is instead of ordered by unit, it's just ordered by week. So students just have to keep track of the week. And then I probably would add that numbering system here as well. Another favorite example of our technique that I like is the use of emojis as part of either your topics and or as part of your assignment names. And it's not just because they're cute and fun, but it also helps our students connect to the work. So this one happens to connect to the subject, but you could help it connect to the type of assignment, perhaps like a target thing for things that are due or that they have to turn in. This helps our youngest learners connect to the work. So I wouldn't use too many. I would kind of come up with a standard set so they become familiar. But this also helps our English language learners or families who are helping students but maybe are struggling with language. Giving them that visual to go with the text is a great way to try to address the needs of a lot of our learners or our stakeholders, really. And then lastly, please always include a due date for your students. It's important that they know when the work is due and they have it in classroom. So if they're using different techniques to keep track, they have all of that available. So in addition to making sure that we're really diligent about the way we have our classroom set up and giving them due dates, we know that our students are at home. A lot of them are going through this on their own. So it's really important for us to give them strategies and structures to keep their work organized. So two things that you can do are providing them sort of a week at a glance to let them know, here's what's coming, here's what you're going to have to turn in, here's some other resources. So when you come back to this presentation, you'll see that we have two examples for you. This one is a week at a glance. It's a template so you can make your own copy. This one's organized by day of the week, or you might choose to organize by content area. And you could use this for a daily or a week at a glance, whatever works best for you. And then we have just a slightly different view of it. And then of course there's blank ones. So if those two structures don't work, you can choose your own. Another favorite is a template offered by Slides Mania. And you can see here it's the daily and then it goes the weekly and then it goes into a lot of detail for a particular day of the week. So I'll just click through so you can see the next few. Okay. And if this is something that you'd like to use, you can choose to get the Google Slides theme and add it to your drive and start using it. I did purposely link to the whole Slides Mania site so that you can explore all the other wonderful templates that are available here for you. In addition to the weekly agendas, you might want to provide a daily summary. This could be something you just post to the stream, and it's just a few quick sentences about, okay, here's the recap of what we did today. Remember, these things are due tomorrow. Depending on your age group and the content, that might be an important piece, especially if you have younger students whose parents will be checking back in later in the day. That could be really a service to them as they're logging into classroom with their child or looking through what's there. That provides some guidance for them. So you know your audience and you can decide what you think would be best. And then lastly, Google just released a to-do widget for students. So let's take a look at this. When students go to the classroom and click on the menu, they can simply click on to do and see a list of all of their work. They can view all classes or switch to a specific class to see the work that's due or what they've finished. So make sure you take some time to teach your students about that to-do widget and help them use that as a strategy. As a bonus, they also have one for teachers for work that you have to review. So take advantage of that for yourself too. Next, we want to give students an opportunity to check in. We only see them for a short bit of time in the synchronous world. So when they're asynchronous, how can we get them to let us know what's going on? You might do that through a question in classroom, whether it's a short answer and you give them kind of a free opportunity to share, or just a quick multiple choice. How are you feeling today? How much do you understand of the lesson? Or maybe you teach students to use private comments. So on a particular assignment, if they're struggling, have them write a private comment in classroom so that it comes just to you and you can have that conversation related to that specific assignment. If you want to step out of the features built into Classroom, you can use tools like Flipgrid for video responses. You can use this template of a journal that they can keep in slides that can be sort of an ongoing place to reflect or to share. Or maybe you have this small activity that's a Jamboard activity where students can drag and drop. In this case, they're dragging numbers, so I don't see each other's names, but they can kind of indicate, are they good, okay, bad? Maybe that's understanding or feelings. Again, these are just quick check ins. That's kind of that same thing that you would do if you looked around the room to gauge how your students are doing. Um, you can use this synchronously or asynchronously. And then finally, surveys through forms. These are just a little more detailed where when you come into the presentation, you can access the templates for these as well.
One thing that's going to be very important for us is maintaining schedules. Schedules and routines, as you can see as we apply different apps, will make it easier for your students to follow along and for their caretakers to be assisting them in their virtual classrooms. The district has provided general schedules for each day of the week that students are in session and for the teachers to maintain their schedules. But let's take a look at how you can, as a teacher, put together your individual classroom schedules and routines. There's some things that you should always have available for your students. First of all, they need to know what materials they're going to need for the day. You need to post for them the link to get to each and every session and the session recording and when that recording will be available if they need to reinforce what happened in class for that day. These are things that should be a part of your daily routine and in a place where students and their parents can locate them easily. On your schedule and in your live session, there should be a place where your first 5 minutes are available. And this should be a daily place where I know exactly what's going to happen in class during the first 5 minutes. I also know what tools, features, apps, links, or how to utilize the materials that you asked me to have available in the class that day. Most importantly, how am I going to ask questions and communicate and comment with my teacher? This should be a daily routine. Am I going to put comments in a chat format? Am I going to use within my um, software raising hands, using smiley faces? Whatever routine you establish, this should be the routine that's used throughout each and every day. I'm going to show you some examples that we located to show you how you can utilize your first 5 minutes in a routine using your um, resources of the day. And this teacher refers to her beginning of the class as morning meeting. She will begin the day with a greeting and review how we say good morning and how we choose our virtual greetings to be shared. Every day, she indicates a think about session where she will show a video that the students will use as their thought for the day, or possibly this could be a section where you would include your warm up of the day. There's a share out feature. This is how it's important for the students to share what's going on in the classroom and to be participants in a class discussion. Another idea that you might want to include as a part of your morning meeting would be a quote of the day. Here's a template that we're providing for you that also follows in the same kind of format, but this one branches out And each day there is a page for each and every subject area and a place for the teacher to post videos, links, highlighted words, and the expectations of the day. You start out with your good morning session, and then as you click through this template, you'll be able to add the things that you need for the day. The key here is consistency. Once students become familiar with your daily routines, where to find things that they need, it will make their experience in the virtual classroom so much more successful and more engaging when they know exactly where to find everything that they need.
Parents' communication. Think about what will you put in place to communicate with families. You may have used other communication tools in the past, but keep in mind that Blackboard Connect is the official tool for communicating with families. You can see an example of your Blackboard Connect on our teacher website. Once you go to our distance learning page, under teacher, you will click Blackboard Connect, and then you can scroll to see the Blackboard Connect resources. Classroom Guardian Summaries. We recommend that you invite parents to be part of your Classroom Guardian Summaries. What that is, it is a summary of what is happening in your classroom, in Google Classroom. It is not a comprehensive representation of your class. Here is a sample of what your Google Classroom Guardian summaries will look like. On a weekly basis, you will receive student work information in terms of what is happening in your Google Classroom. Family Portal. We do ask you to encourage parents to register for Family Portal so that they can access their schedule information for the students, the attendance information, and also grade information whenever they want. This will give parents the tool that they need to see their student progress on a weekly basis. As part of the communications tools, we recommend that you give parents a contact information survey so that you can compile a list of your parents' contact. Now, keep in mind this parents' contact information survey is just for you. That information is personal to you. It is not going to update SchoolMax information for the parents. So if your parents need to update SchoolMax information, they will need to reach out to the registrar. And here is a sample of what your parents' contact survey will look like. So you will be able to make a copy of that survey and then distribute that survey to your parents. Continuing with parent communications, once you have your list from your parents through the parents contact survey, now that you have that list, you can use that list to create a contact list in your Google Gmail account. So once you have that information from your list, you can come here. We did put some information here for you as to how you create a contact in Google and how you create your parents group in Google. Once you have your parents group in your Google account, this will make it easier for you to contact parents if you need to send a quick email to a particular parent or if you want to send a blast email to all of the parents in your classroom. Should you need more contact information from the parents, I would ask you to please reach out to your school registrar for more information about your parents' contact. So your school registrar will have updated information based on what the parents put in SchoolMax. So always reach out to your SchoolMax school registrar for information regarding your parents' contact in SchoolNet. What happens if your parents need help? How will parents contact you if they need help? So you may want to put some type of things in place to find out how you are going to communicate with your parents. Remember, I just showed you one way you could do that is by having a parents contact list and by making a grouping for your parents in your Google contacts in your Gmail account. So that's one way you may decide to communicate with parents. Or you can also use Blackboard Connect to communicate with your parents. How will parents know exactly what's going on in the classroom on a regular basis? How are you going to share information with your parents? One way to do that is by having a newsletter. You can always have a newsletter. If possible, you can use a Google Drawings to create a newsletter if you want, or you can use Microsoft Suite to create a newsletter if you want. You may also decide, hey, I'm going to have a website for my parents. And if you are going to have a website for your parents, here is for information about how to get started with Google Sites. So this way you will be able to find more information about how to start a Google site to cater to your parents. So these are all tools that you can use to communicate with your parents. Or you may decide to do something like we did for that presentation and have an app available for the parents. So if you do that, this is the way it will look like if you decide to use something like an app like from Slide Mania. This is an app that we are using, showing you how we can do a phone app to distribute information to a particular audience. So this may be of something that may be of interest to you that you can use. Now let's talk about troubleshooting for a moment. Should you need to troubleshoot information, issues you're having with your students, please, we recommend you to not stop your lesson to troubleshoot issues. Please do not stop your lesson to troubleshoot issues. What you may want to do, you may want to note who is that student who is having trouble, and then at a later time, especially during independent practice or during some guided practice with some students, you may want to reach out. But do not stop your lessons to interact with a student who is having technical issues. If this is something you can solve in a reasonably short amount of time, you will go ahead and do that. But if it's something that you cannot solve in a reasonable amount of time, please refer the student for additional support. Always remember, you can always point the student out to the recording of the lesson for later viewing. So this is something to keep in mind, but we do ask you not to stop your lesson to troubleshoot technical issues for your students. Always keep track of those students having issues and then get back to them later on. What about your devices? Should you have issues with students' devices, students having issues with their devices, they cannot connect, we recommend that you create a help desk ticket or contact your IT technician for your school. So sometimes you may have issues with some of the tools that we are recommending to you. And if this is the case, what we ask you to do is to visit our distance learning page. And once you visit our distance learning page, you will be able to go to the digital tools page. And then from the digital tools page, you will see some information pertaining to your particular tool. So from there, you may find some quick information as far as fixing some very basic issues that you may have with that tool. And if you're still having problems with that tool, we do recommend that you reach out to us, to T3, and T3 will be able to help you with some of the issues you may be having with that particular tool. Accounts. How do you solve accounts issues? Every school has a password administrator. So if one of your students is having issues with accounts, please contact your password administrator or your IT technician for your school for any related issues with password. Sometimes the parents may be asking you for information about issues they are having with either their student accounts. So I would say guide the parents to schedule an appointment with the Parents Help Center for either live hands-on support to look at their information later. So we have some more information forthcoming for you in terms of parent centers. As we receive more information about the parent centers, we'll disseminate that information to you as well. Now let's talk about policies for a minute. Keep in mind that parents will have the option to opt out their student from turning on their video or their audio on and off during live lessons. So parents may opt out to remove their students from turning on their video or their audio. They may also opt out their students from using supplemental tools such as Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, and any other tools that we have put there for teachers to use. So please keep this in mind, and information about opt-out forms will be forthcoming. You can always ask your administration about these tools and the information about opt-out forms and when and where they will be able to get them later. Our contact information. This is for Dr. Thomas, Miss Merrick, Eric, myself, Patrick Pierre-Louis, and Renee Anderson. We also have information for you in case you are on social media. You can reach us at t3@pdcps, or you can always email us t3@pdcps.org should you need some information from us. And the distance learning page, bit.ly/T3PDCPS. On behalf of the technology training team, thank you for joining us. Until we see you in one of our future trainings, have a wonderful day and keep safe. Thank you, everybody.